Warhammer Space Marine 2 is, like its namesake suggests, a sequel to the 2011 title from Relic Entertainment, but this time created by the fine folks at Sabre, who helped 343 with the Halo series all the way back to the 360, made SnowRunner Quake Champions, and created the World War Z games. And trust me, that example in particular matters. Why? Because Space Marine 2 sends our lead against the Tyranids in hack and slash and bash and mash action that can handle up to 3 players in co-op. And just like the sequel suggests, everything is bigger, badder, and more bombastic than the first. To put the fear of the Xenos in you, Tyranids are bioengineered aliens infecting known and unknown space, taking over entire planets. Think the Alien in the Alien movies, but with about 30 forms, and trading acid for a hive mind with one focus: infect absolutely everything. They surf the waves of deep space in giant living ships until they find a suitable place to spit out their kind and take over. And that's what's happened at the start of this game. I got to play Warhammer Space Marine 2 for a long time, messing around in the second level. And be aware, this is their B footage. To help me fight the Xenos and the evil of the god Eutubicus, help me by commenting and subscribing, or maybe listing your favorite race, alien, hero, or villain from the Warhammer world lore. I mention lore right here because I want to concretely draw the line of where a preview is versus, say, an alpha impression or a beta. This demo was about atmosphere, feeling, and a good deal of combat. But throughout it, it was a concentrated focus on making sure that you understood what it felt like to be playing as a Space Marine, not just in combat, but in the size and the grandeur of everything, in the gist of deeper atmospheric lore, discussion, and the faith that these warriors have. It was a bit like Sabre wanted to say, hey, we get it, we're different, and it's different, and we think we got it right. The preview started with a short introduction to the group, like a holy bullet christened from the very spirit of the God Emperor. You're punching through the atmosphere of a planet, taking on the new scourge of these games. The Space Marines flying down to a planet in dire shape, and you're the last hope for the first responders. If Space Marines are anything, they're the physical embodiment of a kick-ass emoji, and their jokes usually involve weird comments about who believes more. But as badass as they may be up for their match here. A churning miasma of murderous flesh moving in concert down a hill. It's like a nature video when a stampede of cows occurs, but here the cows look like multi-limbed bugs and move like ants. They have pincers for arms and seem intent to World War Z you with their sheer numbers as they rip snort down a valley wall into the front forces of some underprepared and measly defensive unit. And that's where you find yourself in the first part of this preview. There's a large opening battlefield, then we went through some sticky, dirty, swampy, forested areas and ended up in a series of levels in a military complex. Ancient machines that never tire, churning away with unknown reasons, but as unluck would have it, one of them needs to get restarted, and that's going to be up to you, and you're fighting in and around below, and then on top of this massive complex you need to find the dynamos for and get them started again to open a massive radar dish. To get an idea just how huge and powerful a Space Marine is, you don't get the friggin' complex started with the use of some machine. No, you're the machine. You turn the magnetic spool with your damned hands like an old overexcited Price is Right contestant until it sparks to life. The atmosphere is absolutely thick in this game, but it's backed up by very good combat, something we saw in the original game. You have an unlimited number of rounds in your personal bolter and a combat knife, but you have the ability to pick up other weapons. Some that I got were the auto bolt rifle, bolt carbine, and heavy bolt rifle. Now, when firing, hip fire is available for all the guns, and each also has a zoomed in down the iron sights aim. If you want to do that, you can, but it's at a cost of mobility and vision. And that is a weakness here, because the Tyranids not only race across open distances, but many of them can leap, presenting a real challenge when you're laying down suppressing fire and then one suddenly ends up in front of you. You can also have a special that can power up by defeating enemies. And if you like super up close and personal, you can also execute enemies if they've been hurt enough, or if you've damaged the larger Tyranids enough with peppering fire. Through my preview, the combat was smooth enough, though the preview did have some FPS drops. Up close, you're swinging the sword back and forth or the combat knife. Then, mid-range, you can throw down those hip-based shots, ripping across the terrain, turning the Tyranids into all their separate components, a chunky tomato soup. And if you see any far away, you can blast them with the longer-range weapons that have a bit better accuracy. Each weapon clacks with metal-on-metal sounds like big guns as Space Marines always do. Each gun sounded a little bit like it's just an engine that says, fuck it, and throws the pistons at the enemies to win the race. What's always been so important in the Warhammer games is a sense of scale and weight depending on who you're playing. The Space Marines are massive, and some can move incredibly quick, but for the most part, there's a moment-to-moment, a feeling of weight to them that needs to be translated on screen. And seeing the Marine walking, each foot crunching down almost like a mini-mech, versus the humans running around you inside the base offers this tactile reflection of size and power of the heroes you play almost instantly. Even in battle, swinging the chainsword, watching it cut into the bodies, and then throwing dirt and clods of mud everywhere instantly translates to a very real feeling of power. Graphically, everything is exactly as you would expect in a Warhammer game. While that chunky FPS did show that this game is still deep in development already, it has the atmosphere nailed down as the camera cuts to a mountain, a swarm of millions of flying creatures whisk through the air, all of them making bird-like direction changes, except these birds don't eat worms. They do look a bit like them, though. Then the camera drops down to this massive mountain beyond, and it's just crawling with the enemy. And whether far away or up close, and regardless of which of the levels I was in, it looked great. There are some missing effects and animations here or there, but this is a title that's very early in the preview process, so that would be expected. It's making headway, and while it has many months to go, there's a solid game already showing in what I played, and I played through this level many times. One of the places where I think that they excel is voice. It's spot on. Space Marines intoned, measured utterings while deep in battle. These guys do stirring speeches like a Nike commercial delivered from a very stern dad. I've always liked the choices in the Warhammer games for voice actors. They seem to be one of the few IPs where the voice direction is always in line with the expectations you may get from the fiction, the board games, or the role-playing titles. Now, Space Marine 1 was a bold move, an attempt to translate the Space Marines into an excellent third-person action game and single-handedly save the universe from the Xenos, a title that had a tremendous replay value and an excellent eye towards the fiction against the orcs at that time. The last part is altered here, as the Tyranids offer a substantially different enemy type. Gone are the orcs and their big, bold goofiness and setups that look like herbs hangouts and impromptu constructions. Here, the bugs have encrusted into the Emperor's Holy Land, and so that means lots of man-made structures teeming after takeover, and the Space Marines going in the next one and then the next one to destroy them. That doesn't mean we won't see the inside of hive ships or other ships. We don't know if we will, or other locations, or even other enemy types. But the first scene with the ant hive of evil 400-pound creatures ripping across the mud and crud to tear you apart has a distinctly different feeling than the original game did, but is still utterly Warhammer. It's more manic, it's a good deal more primal, and even in this short section, I would say, requires a bit more of both the hero and the player as a game. And that fits with what we're seeing here. In the Warhammer universe, the main ideal has always been about escalation. Everything escalates. Nothing's brought down. Nothing's evened out. Their version of a win is sometimes just to glass a planet. That'd be like the NFL game ending by killing the other team so they can't score and then burning all the stadiums to the ground. The enemy can't win if they can't play. And you already feel that that is the message you're getting in Space Marine 2. I especially liked how often you were with others on your team in the preview. Consistently seeing other Marines fighting off enemies as well as saving the colonists on the planet tightened the feeling up and offered a nice offset to that complete chaos and anarchy that was actually occurring on screen. And I assume those AI would just be replaced by players when you jump in to do co-op. While it was early, and it's hard to grasp the entire whole game from the snippet I played, the new devs already have a handle on the atmosphere, the worldview, and the combat in general. It'll be for the review code to prove if that holds out, but I have to say, after actually playing this, it feels like returning to an old, grizzled best friend. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the preview. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe. Peace out. Gang, gang.
Here they come!
Desert your post, Guardsman.
No, Lord. Never!
We've locked them in. We could do no more.
Open the gate.
Yes, my lord. Open the gates!
You ever wonder if a Space Marine just gets tired of saving everybody? He's like, dude, not again. I think the next game should be a Space Marine PTSD therapy simulator. Just a dude sitting on his therapist's couch. Tell me about your day. Bethor died today. He was torn limb from limb. How did that make you feel? I feel nothing. And just kills her. The end. Episode 1. Wait for episode 2, 2 weeks from now.